Hey there, I am back with another deck review, and today we're going to be looking at the Green Man Winter Edition from Jocu Playing Cards. Now, Jocu is the talented Italian pair Anthony Holt and artist Alessandra Gagliano. The pair have done several decks going back to 2019 with their first deck, Felidae. Now, Felidae is an absolutely magnificent deck. In fact, it was named the Rookie Deck of the Year by United Cardists in that year. And very well deserved. They followed that up with a number of successful campaigns, including the original Green Man Kickstarter campaign. Now, this deck doesn't actually come from the Kickstarter campaign. That campaign consisted of these two decks that you see here. These are the spring and the autumn editions of the Green Man deck. Absolutely magnificent designs. These appeared on my top 10 decks for 2020, and definitely worth checking out if you haven't already. But after the success of these two decks, they followed it up in late 2020 with the winter edition of the deck. So you have the spring and the autumn. Now we have the winter. Maybe we'll get the summer someday. But the winter one is completely redesigned. It follows a lot of the same characters from the original deck, but explores them as if they were, kind of found their way into the winter season. And so you're going to see a lot less of the lush plant life, a lot of that kind of pulled back as the plants kind of die off or go into hibernation for the winter. Very cool exploration. I love that it's completely redesigned. This is no simple recolor that we're looking at here. So let's jump into it and check out the winter edition of the Green Man. Now, the Green Man himself is a significant, if a little bit mysterious, mythological figure. The Green Man is originally thought to be this pagan symbol, but you'll also see depictions of the Green Man on churches and other religious buildings as well. So very mysterious, not much known about the origin, but you'll see depictions of the Green Man or similar type of stories appear in cultures across history and across the entire world. And this deck really dives into a lot of those. Now, the front of the tuck case, and we'll start out with just taking a look at this. It's done on this matte blue, kind of baby blue stock, and it's covered with multiple colors of foil and a really fine embossing. Lots of detail going on, but you can see that lighter blue and the darker blue. And then if you look carefully, you may be able to make out some of those lines of silver, kind of a translucent silver that's glowing on there as well. Beautifully done. These tuck cases were actually printed by Boschiero Newton. I hope I'm pronouncing that name right, but they're another Italian-based company. They do, in my mind, some of the best tuck case work that's done anywhere in the world. They are amazing at the fine level, intricate foiling and embossing that you see here. So I'm sure you're going to see them on a lot more tuck cases in the future, but they've been working with Jocu for a while. Now, as you look at the detail on this one, you've got the Green Man on the banner across the top, and then the large emblem with a depiction of almost kind of a carved image of the Green Man in that, bright blue foil. Lots of spiraling lines, almost mimicking like a wood grain feel all the way around, and then finishes out with kind of a sparse depiction of little plants and buds just creeping out along the edges. I love the detail in this. I love the color scheme. It's a perfect match for the winter theme of the deck. Now, turning to the sides, you've got the Green Man, and you get a couple of appearances of a Triskele. You'll see these a lot on the Jocu decks. They are Sicilian, and the Triskele appears on the Sicilian flag, or a depiction of it, but it's this little trio of spirals that you see here. It's a circular motif that appears in a lot of different cultures, including, like I said, the Sicilian flag. On the other side, it just says Made in Europe. And then the bottom, you get add copy. You can see, I mentioned already about the tuck cases being made in Italy, the cards printed by Cartamundi and designed by Jocu. The top here just has the name of the deck, The Green Man by Jocu Playing Cards. And the back has a version, foiled and embossed, of the back design of the cards. And you can see a little preview of it there, but give a really close up and you can see just how intricate some of that foil work is and how it glows. Really just outstanding work on these. As you open up the tuck, you get a little symbol there, that kind of triangular symbol. Another version of the Triskele appears here, this time in the form of a triangle. This is kind of more of a Celtic depiction of the Triskele. and you get some interior printing as well. Little peak of the green man coming out of the tuck case, and then more of those sort of wood grain lines going all the way down. So really cool interior printing. And that is the tuck case as usual from Jocu. Outstanding work and design on the tuck case. But let's get into the cards, and we'll start with the back design. And here it is. Now, if you've seen the original Green Man decks, you'll know that this back design is, while it's still definitely inspired by some of those originals, it's a lot sparser. It's almost like the entire background here with that light blue color is set against a bed of snow, and then you're just seeing some of the branches and buds just poking their way out of the snow. Really nice look to it overall. If you thought the original ones were too busy, which I wouldn't blame you if you did, this one really kind of pulls a lot of that back in keeping with that winter theme. Main view here is going to be two depictions of the Green Man, almost like they're carved in wood, or maybe as a kind of a carved in stone kind of look to them. But beautiful flowing image of the Green Man, and then surrounded, like I said, by little bits of vine work, fine vines and leaves just kind of poking their way out all the way around. More looks of the Triskele here in the middle, and another depiction of the Triskele, this trio of rabbits that are kind of running in a circle. That's a version of the Triskele that you'll see in Britain kind of frequently. So there is the back design. Really like what's going on there. Then into the cards themselves. We'll start with the extra cards. Here are two depictions of what's called a fae. A fae is, kind of a fairy or a character that was, kind of a woodland character. They can either be good or bad, and you'll see both the good and the bad depictions of them here. I wouldn't say bad, maybe I'd say mischievous is a better word. But here's the good version. Very kind of serene, friendly look on his face with a wave there for you, and just standing right there in the center. Beautiful design. And then the more impish version kind of has that mischievous grin on his face with his head cocked to the side like that. So good and bad depictions of the Fae. You'll see them appear throughout lots of different stories, sometimes helping travelers, sometimes causing them trouble. And so you get both versions here. You also get a couple of other extra cards. You get one blank facer. Kind of wish it had been a double backer. I don't think I would use this for Magic anyway, so the blank face has a lot less use, and I think just having a double backer to appreciate both sides with that beautiful back design would have been maybe a little better. And then you get an ad card for Jocu, and gives a little bit of a story of the deck and some of the inspirations. That's the extra cards. Now into the meat of the deck, and we'll start with the aces. Now, the aces are all kind of equally impressive all the way through, and they depict 4 different versions of the Green Man, each going through a different season. So while it is the winter deck overall, the 4 aces each represent the Green Man in a different season. And much like some of the original cards, or the original older decks, each season or each suit is inspired by a different element. So we'll see that reflected as well. So we'll start with the Ace of Spades. This is the Green Man in autumn and represented by air. And so down here at the bottom, you'll see a little alchemical symbol for air, that triangle with a line through it. Another Triskele depicted at the top. And then of course in that large spade pip in the center, you have the Green Man himself. And those color changing leaves definitely get that slight autumn vibe for it. Even with the kind of blues in there that tie it back to the blues that you see throughout the rest of the deck. But that's the Green Man. You can see him surrounded, his beard and his hair made up of a mixture of maple and oak leaves. Next up, we go to the Ace of Diamonds. This is the Green Man in winter and depicted as earth. So the symbol for earth. And this time, he's got a little bit of a jolly look to him, almost like St. Nicholas there in the middle. And then he's kind of ringed by a mixture of winter plants like cypress, holly, and mistletoe all the way around. Then going to the Ace of Clubs, in the center of that club pip, you have the Green Man, this time represented as spring and fire. So symbol for fire at the bottom. And then spring, he actually has olive leaves all the way around him. Now, olive trees actually have an interesting story tied to fire. So at the founding of Athens, it was said that Athena planted an olive tree in the center of the city. So there's this big olive tree that bloomed right in the center of the city. Well, years later, the entire city was ransacked and ravaged by fire from an invading Persian army. And after that entire fire finally burned out, there was one tree that survived the entire blaze right there in the middle of the city, and it was Athena's olive tree. So the olives have an interesting tie to fire as well. Interesting little touch, you'll see down here a stick. That's a slight nod to the Latin version of the pips, where the clubs were instead depicted as sticks or batons. And then you go to the Ace of Hearts. Last but not least, this is the Green Man in summer and represented by water. So there's water at the top and then the summery leaves around him. Not sure, these are either lemon tree leaves, I think that's what they are, or they might instead of lemon trees be elder tree leaves. So not really sure which one they are, but nice kind of cheeky wink on his face as well. So those are the 4 aces, 4 looks at the Green Man himself. Then we get into the number cards. Now these, compared to the originals, are much simpler. The originals had some of the pips replaced with plants in them. These just have regular pips on each card. There's just a slight customization. If you look real close, you'll see little bits of ice or snow just capping or dripping off the bottom of some of the pips. Gives it a wintry feel overall, but not quite as customized or ornate or detailed as some of the original pips from the Green Man. I like this one. Again, pulling back on some of the plant life is really fitting for winter. And I like the small, subtle touch of the snow or ice on these. As you go to the red cards, they're now done in a much deeper red, almost black on camera, but they are definitely a deep, deep maroon on these. And I'll give one small nitpick on these that I wish had been done differently. You'll see repetition on some of the pips. So these 2 pips, for example, are exactly the same, or here and here, these 2 are exactly the same. I wish the identical pips had been spread out a little bit more, maybe mixed in with a few more variations. Would have given a little bit more of a random feel to the deck, but small thing overall. All right, then we go into the clubs. More pretty standard large club pips with the ice dripping off of them. And then through the hearts, and you'll see those nice small pip and indices in the corner. No ice on the one in the corner, but nice, easy to read. So that is the number cards. But finally we get to the meat of every Jocu deck, where the mythology and the story are really told, and that's in the court cards. So we'll start out by looking at the kings. The kings represent 4 different archetypes of the Green Man, different versions, if you will, of the Green Man that appear throughout mythologies or stories throughout the world. We'll start with the King of Spades. This is the Wild Man. And the Wild Man was a human who was said to live in the forest, kind of living with the animals and away from all human contact. Lived out there in the wild, and you can see him here, very rugged look to him overall. He's of course in the winter, so most of the plant life has died off. You just see the branches off of his head that maybe normally would have been in bloom with like elm or maple leaves, something like that. And then he has that sort of fur cloak that's dripping with bits of ice that are caked onto it. Really cool depiction of him overall, and nice representation of that deep tie that humans can or maybe should have with nature. Now, the King of Diamonds. This is one of my favorite, and I'll talk about why in a second, but this is the Jack of the Green. Jack of the Green isn't a character in mythology per se, but is celebrated every year in May Day festivities in Europe, where people will dress up often as literal trees. It's kind of a crazy festival. But here's the Jack of the Green depicted. You can see him holding cypress, and he has a crown there of cypress and holly. And then one of my favorite parts is that beard. I love those thick, wavy lines that form up the hair. You'll see a few other characters that do this, but this is one of my favorite. I love that those kind of shades of green that are in there. So there's Jack of the Green on the King of Diamonds. Next up is the King of Clubs. This is rowan, and rowan trees were said to be one of the best protections against evil spirits. So locals would cut the branches and use them to ward off those spirits or those witches. And you can see here that personified rowan tree, almost like a face carved into the tree. And you can see some of the branches have actually been cut off, maybe by locals wanting to protect themselves. A cool look at the rowan tree. And last but not least is the King of Hearts. This is Tapio, and for this one we go to Finland. This is one of the Finnish characters that are featured in the Kalevala, which is a set of epic poems that are up there. And he is wearing some fine birch armor. That's that kind of white wood that you see back there. And also has these really cool mossy eyebrows. I don't know how well that's showing up on camera. Let me see if I can zoom in. There you go. You can see those moss-covered eyebrows that he's got. So cool look at this Finnish character. Nice little touch to kind of go out into different cultures. And this is one that huntsmen would pray to before venturing out into the woods. All right, that is the kings. Now we go to the queens, and the queens all have different ties with mythology and with stories of the forest. So we start with the Queen of Spades, and this is Philide. Now, if that name sounds familiar, it is because I mentioned Philide as the first deck ever from Jocu. Philide was the center of that story and also has a unique tie with nature herself. Now, go check out my review of Philide if you want to hear the entire story of Philide. It's worth hearing, but I'll give the quick version here. So Philide died of a broken heart after her lover Akamante set off to war, and she was waiting for him to come back, eventually died of a broken heart and of her grief. She was rescued by Giannone, otherwise known as Hera in ancient Greece, and was allowed to be reborn as an almond tree. And so all around here you'll see little buds, not blossoming in any way, but little buds and branches of an almond tree surrounding her. And nice little touch symbolizing her grief. You can see the frozen teardrop that's coming out of her eye. Beautiful depiction, and I love the nod back to the original Philide decks in here. Next up is the Queen of Diamonds. The Queen of Diamonds is the woodland nymph, otherwise known as the Lady of the Lake. You'll see her appear in Arthurian folklore as Merlin's lover. And she has some more plants behind her, including a large lily pad symbolizing the fact that she lived in the lake. And she has, you can see it here, it's wilted now, but these are hops that are in her hand. That may be a nod to one of the other decks in Jocu's line, the Hops and Barley deck. Not sure if that was intentional or just a coincidence, but would be cool if it was an intentional tie across the decks. All right, then we go to the Queen of Clubs. This is Athena. Athena was a Greek goddess, the goddess of wisdom, and she's depicted here surrounded by olive trees. You'll remember the story of the olive tree that she planted at the center of Athens, and she's flanked by her trademark owl there, one of her symbols, that owl sitting at her shoulder as well. Very cool look to it. And then my favorite touch is this aegis or shield that she's holding. You can see it kind of cut in half on both sides, but it features a Medusa on it. According to the legend, Perseus killed Medusa and then gifted the head to Athena, and then Athena put it on her shield and used it to protect her. So very cool look at it. Lots of those olive branches and leaves flowing all the way around. And last but not least is the Queen of Hearts. This is the Elder Witch. And the Elder Tree was said by a lot of people to house an evil witch, so this might be that evil witch that was housed inside the Elder Tree. You can see those branches all the way around. But there are other legends that said that the Elder Tree was maybe used to ward against witches. So whether it's good or evil, you decide. There were also legends that you could pull a branch off and make a wand out of the elder tree, and it would form an incredibly powerful wand. That may be where the Elder Wand from the Harry Potter series comes from, actually. So nice look to it overall. I like the serene look here. I think, depending on how you look at it, you could almost see this as that evil, malevolent, kind of plotting look, or as a serene, friendly look, just depending on how you want to look at it. And I love that it kind of plays off that dual legend of the Elder Witch. All right, so that's the queens. Last but not least, we have the jacks, and these are stories of characters that were trapped in some way by nature or by the woods. The first one, we have the first and the only two-person depiction. This is Pyrrhus and Thisbe. They were a pair of star-crossed lovers that lived in Babylon. They had a story that was really similar to the story of Romeo and Juliet that Shakespeare wrote about, and the two committed suicide under a nearby mulberry tree, and then their blood stained the mulberries red. So that's the story of Pyrrhus and Thisbe, and you can see the two of them paired there. Cool look to those. All right, next up is the Jack of Diamonds, and this is the Wild Huntsman. The Wild Huntsman was an avid hunter who, as he neared death, demanded to be left on the earth to hunt. And it was this priest that was giving him his last rites, and the priest became really frustrated and angry with him, and so instead cursed him to remain on earth until Judgment Day. Interesting story. You can see that defiant look on his face there. And then the wood that's depicted here is actually the wood of the alder tree. All right, next up, Jack of Clubs. This is Yvonne. This is from a legend of Brittany called the Castle of the Sun. And according to that story, Yvonne ventured out into the forest to try to find his only daughter after she disappeared. And he ultimately survived that journey, but magically, while he was in the woods, entire lifetimes had passed while he was gone. And when he got out, he discovered that his entire family was gone. So it was a little bit of a curse. But here the wood depicted is of an ash tree, and I love the icy look, the crystals over his shoulder and those icicles. This is definitely the iciest looking of the cards. And last but not least is the Jack of Hearts. This might be the most recognizable of all of the characters. This is Merlin, also from Arthurian legends. Now, you may remember the story of the woodland nymph, the Lady of the Lake, that I talked about with the Queen of Diamonds. Well, she was also the downfall of Merlin. She eventually ensnared Merlin. He kind of fell under her spell, ended up entrusting her with all of his secrets before he ultimately died. And so there's Merlin depicted. And that's it. That is the entire set of court cards. Really beautifully illustrated, beautifully designed. Now, as far as handling on this one, they're on the slimline stock with that true linen finish from Cardamudi. It is my favorite stock and finish in the world. They handle beautifully right out of the box. Super thin, snappy feel to them overall, but still really, really soft if you want to use these cards. So they handle absolutely beautifully. They look great in fans. What do I think of the deck overall? Well, I think more than anything, it's an art and collector's deck. Definitely usable enough for gameplay, but I think art and collecting is going to be where it's at. And for me, I will say I absolutely love the deck. I will say it's my least favorite of the three. I like the spring and the autumn versions a good bit more, mostly because there's a lot more going on, a lot more life and plants and symbolism that you can see throughout it. But don't take that to mean that this is a bad deck by any means. As a standalone deck, I prefer the other two, but this is an absolutely worthy, and I would say if you're into the Green Man, a necessary addition to the series. I love the differences and the depictions here. I love the redrawing and the reimagining of everything in winter. I think it's just a great addition overall to the series. So while this is my third favorite of the three, that makes it a fantastic deck by any other standard. All right, so that's it. That is the look at the Green Man Winter Edition from Jocu Playing Cards. Now, you can still get these on their site. As of now, I think they've got about a dozen of them left, so hurry up and grab one if you're interested. I'll put a link down in the description where you can check these out if you want to get one for yourself. But thanks for watching for now. Make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews and unboxings and let me know what else you want to see. That's it for now, and I'll see you for the next one.